Everybody, and call to order. And we have, I don't think we have an overcrowded schedule today, but as usual, everything connects to everything else and it gets complicated. So have people had a chance to look at minutes? Are there any concerns about minutes?
I wasn't here, but
So you have,
the last paragraph on the second page where it talks, where Joe has been talking about the water treatment problems. I didn't know what to make of that paragraph. It's because it's serving the public. Is the town going to have to be a, you said that it says the town has long operational compliance issues. Because it's serving the public, it looks like you're saying the town is a public water system operator? Is that correct? I mean, is the town a public water system now?
This facility is considered a community supply well, and we are faced with a few treatment options now, some of which, as a requirement, some of which require an operator to perform, the safety checks and
So we
monitoring.
have that now already then? It's not.
in these buildings you're referring to essentially.
We are tasked with now elevating our treatment because it's a public water supply.
Because they're public buildings.
Correct.
Right.
Okay. So that's what it is then.
Yeah, the language specifically says soon it will be a public water system operator. That's not necessarily true, but soon it may require a public water system operator. That is the case.
Notes to
Sure.
that?
Yeah.
Sure. So Coco, are you tuned in? It's the bottom of the second page of the minutes.
Okay.
And instead of soon, what was the language there?
It says soon it will a public water system operator, and I would suggest we modify it to soon it may require a public water system operator.
That's interesting.
If it says that, I understand.
Right, you get it. You get what's being pointed out, and it's actually kind of interesting that we are public buildings here already. So there's a certain sense in which it's public water supply already.
Coming down.
All right, anything else on minutes? Motion to approve? Motion. Second, all in favor, all that? Yes, everybody's good?
Okay.
All right, so we have our minutes approved. So let's do our usual rainfall. We have two sets of guests today, and so we'll kind of go over. I think the rainfall situation is interesting, so it's worth just taking 5 minutes. You want to start, Greg?
Well, I'll start with the well readings. As far as what the status of the town, we are still in an abnormally dry status according to the Northeast Drought Monitor. This month, from between February and March, we stayed at about the 40th percentile on the big 4 wells that we were able to test.
So 10% below average.
Yeah, 10% below the median, that's correct, which is we're probably going to fall down because it's been so dry.
Looking backwards, clearly, nothing good in the news.
Yeah. We did have a lot of the shallower wells improved quite a bit. They were above the median. But I think when they took these numbers, which I believe it was in March 22, we had some rain. And so the shallower wells picked up some rain, picked up some level, but the deeper wells, which is what we call the feeder, the big 4 wells, they were below, and I suspect that they will be below again.
All right, and we've got manual readings. We don't have.
We had manual readings. Right now, they have 5 of 7 wells are operating, as data logging well heights.
Right.
We saw some nice improvement, except it's starting to tail down already, which hopefully will see some great rainfall. And that's about, I think that's a,
I mean,
a given summary, and then maybe Ken, I know Ken has.
Pray for rain, and so Ken,
Yeah,
how are our
basically,
prayers?
yeah, the numbers I sent out to you basically were, I think I cut off about 412, the numbers at which time we had 0.51 inches of rain in April, for a total year-to-date of April of 12.19. And if you look down through the averages that we had over the years back to 2018, they're substantially less than average rainfall for April at this time. 0.51 is very, very little compared to a typical April, where the April showers are bringing May power, you know, a 3.94 or 3.61 inches, 5.49 in 2019. So we are in a tenuous situation here. If this continues, we need to be aware, and in fact, I just asked BJ regarding if the drought regulations have been accepted by the town, and they have. So we have all the tools that we need, and we just have to pay attention to what Greg gets out of the broader forecast regarding Long Island and Shelter Island, and see if we don't have any more rain, take a look at the well levels, and we might go into one level. In my mind, as far as drought concerns.
Ken, could you just forward me that rainfall data? I wasn't on.
I'm sorry, I will forward it to you right now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right. And the thing, I mean, I think the obvious needs to be stated. I mean, I kind of observed it closely because I was in California over just past, New Year's. There's from a larger picture, the West Coast has suddenly gotten rainfall. And the East Coast is, the bigger picture over 20 years is the West Coast has been starved of rain, and we are getting their rain. This year's a little different. So, we don't know about long-term or short-term, but so not trying to predict too much, at least it's a little moist outside now. Okay, so with that kind of alert that we may need to adjust our drought advisory levels at some point. Lisa was so good to invite our next guest.
Jamson. Jamson, yay, right?
Yeah. So, I'm pleased that you have, been sort of taking this on. So why don't you take it away?
Well, I'm going to let Tamsin do all of the talking, but primarily, we contacted her and another educator at Cornell a while back to see if they would be interested in doing a presentation on fertilizer to local landscapers and arborists, et cetera, and they were very interested. And in fact, it is what they do, and Tamsin's going to go in, I have an outline of what she's going to cover, but the one thing she brought up, and I think it's really very important, is bringing HOAs and homeowners into the conversation, not just educating landscapers, but also homeowners. So without further ado, I will welcome Tamsin. I assume you are there.
Tamsin, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'd like to introduce my colleagues, Emily Lindbeck and Mina DeSera, who's over in the back here. Just wanted to let you know that we're all on board with talking about this subject. I'm going to share my screen. Is that all right?
Sure, thank you.
All right, let me go find, I just have a very short thing I wanted to talk to you about, which kind of, let's see, I want to go slideshow from the beginning. We do this class for the county 4 times a year. We're actually doing it 5 times a year this year. And basically what they have to do is they have to learn about fertilizer, and then they learn about turf maintenance with respect to fertilizer and with respect to irrigation. We cover both nitrogen, which is the problem down here, and phosphorus, which is the problem upstate, which happens to be the first slide.
So we're not seeing your screen just yet.
Oh, okay. Let me escape here and go back to Zoom. Maybe, can you, is there a way to do, there we go. Okay, let's try that. Thank you.
Also, Tamsin, I know it's difficult for you because you have a mask, but it is a little hard to understand you. If there's any way of clarifying that or making,
Actually a way to do that. I'm gonna stop my video so you can't see me anymore, right?
I can see your share screen, thank you.
You can see my shared screen. Okay, this is good. All right, so let me explain to you what we normally do. We are the entity that does the fertilizer classes, Suffolk County nitrogen fertilizer phase-out law, not phase-out law, but the nitrogen fertilizer reduction law. We give this class, it's a 3-hour class, 4 times a year, sometimes 5. We're doing it 5 times this year so far. And what they do is when they're either applying for their home improvement license or their home improvement license expires and they've never taken the class before.
Yeah, hold on, Tamsin, we'll need to adjust for a moment. You're not quite projecting to us just yet. Now, part of the issue, I'm not sure that we're looking at the correct slide. We're looking at an edit of the, click to add title, an edit of a particular.
Let's see. Let's
Speak
try.
slower. Speak slower.
Okay, hold on. Okay.
Now we have presentation. And then next is just speak slower because it's just we're having to parse your words through your mask. That's okay.
Okay. So we give, can you hear me?
We do hear you.
we can hear you, Tamsin, but it's very muddy and I know it's difficult because of the mask. And I don't know if there's any way of remedying that. Maybe just slowing down a bit will help.
Okay. Let's try this again. How's that? Is that
That's
any
better. Yeah.
That's good.
My turn to tell
Okay.
people that speak French or Spanish, I just yell.
Would you like me to speak French or Spanish? I could. No, actually, I can't. I can speak Chinese though. 你好吗？我很高兴见到你. Okay. So let's try this again. We at Cooperative Extension are responsible for teaching the fertilizer nitrogen reduction law class that is required by Suffolk County.
Thank you. That is great. You're coming across great. Thank you.
We do this 4 times a year. Sometimes we do it 5. And what we do is we teach the class to people who either are getting their fertilizer, or not their fertilizer, their home improvement license for the first time through the county, or their home improvement license expires and then they've never taken the class, so they need to take it once. The class is 3 hours long. It focuses on fertilizer, the types of fertilizer. It focuses on irrigation and on turf management to the respect that you're using proper cultural controls like fertilizer and irrigation to make your grass stronger so that you need fewer inputs to begin with. We teach people about the incorrect methodologies for using fertilizer. We teach them how very terrible incorrect irrigation practices can be, not only for fertilizer contamination of the environment, but also for the lawn. And we teach them the whys and wherefores of the law and how the law helps to protect the environment by teaching them the right way to do things. Now, one of the things that we also can do is we can tone this class that we teach for homeowners. And homeowners obviously are going to have things simplified in that they can learn how to know how much fertilizer out of the bag, if any, they should use to put the proper amount on the lawn. They learn to read the fertilizer bag to see how much slow release nitrogen is in the bag. It's a simple calculation. And we teach them, again, the whys and the wherefores We also teach them about how to reduce the amount of their lawn, how this impacts the environment, and how they can do this with the greatest benefit for the environment. That is what we do.
Tamsin,
Yes,
I would suggest anecdotally, the majority of people do not do their own fertilizing. They hire a contractor.
then
So.
what they need to understand then what the contractors should do and why they are doing it. And that can be explained too.
Okay,
Right, and they may not use the same contractor
No,
over
they
time.
may not. They may not use the same contractor. That's very true. Okay,
But homeowner education seems critical too.
yes, and we certainly do a lot of that as well. Originally, when the law was established in 2009, we were supposed to teach the large group that had to be brought into the certificate program. By the way, yes, yes,
We're here.
No questions.
oh, okay. So originally, we were brought to teach the larger portion of the group that had to be brought into the law by getting a certificate, which they get in about 3 weeks after they have received the class. And then other groups were supposed to take this education portion over. But nobody ever did that. So we, by and large, have taught all the classes, which is nice because at this point, we've processed over 2,150 people, contractors, through this class.
Tamsin,
Yes,
I have a question. Is
Yes.
this dealing with fertilizers, this principally aimed at fertilizing grass lawns, or does it cover decorative shrubs, garden plants, et cetera?
good question. Primarily, when we teach the county fertilizer class, it addresses turf grass. However, when we teach other types of classes where we're emphasizing fertilizer and irrigation, we cover both. We cover the turf grass, the trees and shrubs, and other vegetation.
And how do you cover irrigation?
We cover irrigation. There is a 3-hour class on irrigation. It can be less if people are really would like something less. We also have a manual in progress. It's pretty much written, but it has to be just edited so people can take that home with them. And that contains proper irrigation, improper irrigation, the influence of irrigation on fertility and on the environment, the influence of irrigation on insects, on weeds, and on diseases, and other proper cultural management tips for turf, trees, and shrubs with respect to irrigation.
Is that handbook available online?
The handbook is in editing right now. I can get it to you quickly if you would like to have it. There is a soils handbook online. It's called the Pocket Guide to Soils, and it is on our website. That has some of the information that will be in the irrigation handbook, but it will be ready shortly.
The name of that again? Unavailable?
Pocket Guide to Soils.
Thank
And
you.
there's more to it than that. It is under commercial horticulture. It's under commercial horticulture on our website. It's dandy. We had a lot of fun putting it together. So that's a place to start because of course the soil is exceedingly important on how both your fertilizer and your water are going to interact with your site.
Tamsin, you have my email.
Yeah.
Can you just send me the link to that guide?
I already downloaded it, I'll email it to everybody.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Okay.
Never mind, okay.
And
As
Doug,
well as the updated fertilizer and irrigation handbook
right.
in process.
And Doug just
Okay.
leaned over to me and said, like, what we want to do is make sure these things are being connected to our public site, so.
Okay. You
Okay.
got it. Are you interested in a boat bottom paint handbook? That one is done. So I will send you that.
Yeah, please.
Both sides. Oh.
Tamsin, one of my questions would be, just how do you envision, like, let's say we're interested in lots of different programs and classes for lots of different groups of people who might be out here. How would you be interested in scheduling with us and creating, the structure for that?
The best way to do that is to do it through Zoom because people, of course, are more comfortable in their home environment. I'm very comfortable with doing Zoom. So you would email me and say, I want a class in blah, blah, and here are some dates. And then I compare that to my calendar. And I said, aha, blah, blah, I can do on this, that, or the other date. It's that simple.
Now, let me just make sure that I'm understanding the context exactly right. So our landscapers have a requirement to come to you in some sense, right?
If they have a Suffolk County home improvement license, yes, they do, but they only have to take the class once.
Okay, at the beginning of start setting up business.
Or if they're renewing their home improvement license and they've never taken the class before, then they have to take it. So it's
Is
either,
this something that typically landscapers have as a home improvement license? Our license, or our landscapers who are coming to Shelter Island home improvers, or is this, or
It's the designation. I know when I called Southampton, I was directed toward
Home improvement?
home improvement. And that was the only place where licensure was required for fertilization. That's where I got.
my
But
understanding.
how do we know that landscapers from off island have these credentials?
Yeah, as opposed
They
to
have to
the.
have them.
Particularly if it's two guys in a pickup truck.
Right.
okay.
Well, there's a
Well-
level below which we don't know, but there is going to be, people who are in the business. And my assumption here is that landscapers are required to take a course here
Yes,
initially.
That's what-
This is Tamsin's course.
Yes, this is in Suffolk County. In Nassau County, they do not have the education component yet, but they are in discussion for doing some sort of education component.
But for our landscapers, they have a requirement at least once to have taken a course like this.
If they're working in Suffolk County, yes.
Okay. All right, so what we're really asking is, can we build on that?
How do we know it?
That's,
How do I know it if I'm a homeowner that I have a licensed?
Okay,
landscaper.
so there are two ways to do this. Number one, you can ask them, they should have the certificate and they should be able to produce it to show you. Or you can call up the county and you can ask either Jennifer McGivern or Michael Iorio. They have the database for that.
All right. So, again, I don't want to necessarily lead here. You may have more places you wanted to go with what you were presenting already. The one thing that's also in my mind is that we are thinking about the topic of whether it makes sense to have a fertilizer district and how that interacts with both the educational program and the idea of, leading toward more frugal uses of fertilizers.
Have you written up the parameters for the Shelter Island Fertilizer District yet?
no, not yet.
When you write it up, or if you have an idea, could you send it to me?
Hmm.
And then
Oh.
I can look at it?
Thank you very much.
That would be wonderful.
Mhm.
Are there other towns that have gone this route with fertilizer?
I believe Southampton may have, but I actually am not sure on a town by town basis because I work with the county. But I believe that at least one of the Hamptons
Yeah,
has.
Southampton.
Right. There may be others that have regulations, if not a specific fertilizer district. There should always be fertilizer setbacks from the water. And people should always think about creating buffers so that fertilizer doesn't end up either leaching through the ground and into our waters or running off. With the droughty conditions, the issue is running off because if you water or if you irrigate after you've applied fertilizer, and I have plenty of really fun facts about this, it tends to run off like water on a dinner plate.
We'd like that. I think the setbacks there's a variety of, and I don't know if the town, is it 20 feet from,
Yeah.
is it 20 feet in this county? From the edge of the water to the application of fertilizer, is that correct?
It should be. We recommend 20 feet, but I don't think that there's any specification other than what's on the label. I could check that out. The other thing that is extremely important is if someone is using a combination weed and fertilizer product, they have to have a license from the DEC if they're applying it to other places besides their own property. And because it is a pesticide product first and foremost, rather than a fertilizer, you cannot adjust the amount of fertilizer in a combination product.
So Tamsin, how would a homeowner ever know that?
They will understand all when they take the class, right?
Right. So we are saying that, you are saying that it's really important that to be bringing our homeowners more up to speed and engaged and involved with their understanding what their landscapers are doing.
Ooh, doggies, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so Andrew.
Do you have any indication that the course actually changes the behavior of the landscapers?
Now there's the rub. And I will tell you why I don't. This is not a grant. This is a law. So while we are fulfilling the tenets of the law, we don't keep track of the yay, nay, wherefore, and oops, I can't believe I did that. That's what you do when you have a grant so that you can get the percentages that will make them give you another grant because you have affected a behavioral change. But there's no reason if I give programs to your particular clientele that we cannot badger them into either surveys or focus groups or things like that. I have the shells for things of that nature that you can easily adapt for that if you would like to go that route.
And Tamsin is also warning us that the course is only required of landscapers once.
Yes.
Yes, and they're talking about possibly in the future having some recertification, but that is not even been broached yet to anyone. So that is something that you could incorporate in your particular fertilizer district or in your legal package. But as for now, for us in the county law, no.
So that's at the county level, Tamsin?
That is at the county level. This is purely a county law. Several counties have a form of this law. We were first, but I don't believe there's any responsibility for continuing education credits for any of the counties that have this kind of fertilizer law, regardless of what their dates for blackout for applying fertilizer are.
So I do sort of see the reason, some of the reasons I think why you are interested and have some focus on homeowners as opposed to landscapers and the education of homeowners. I'm wondering, where that program is at for you guys. Are you, do you have?
We have no, thank you for asking that question. We have no formal responsibility for the homeowner, but if we are asked to present a program to the homeowner on this topic, and it's equally important that the landscaper and the homeowner both have the same base of information, we will happily give it to the homeowners. It's in a slightly different format, obviously, but it's important that not only the homeowner and the contractor and the HOA person, wherever they land on the side of that, all understand the basic elements behind fertilizer. And it's not that difficult. The problem is whenever you say the word math, people run screaming from the building like a sewage pipe broke. So people have to go into this kind of class, girding their loins and clutching their calculator, so to speak.
No, we definitely understand the problem of having to get people over their math and science anxieties to have these conversations.
Precisely.
Also here, obviously, my colleague here, Doug, just showed me a note saying, here, this stuff impacts your drinking water very directly. So we have the basis for having the conversation. I think that we're also very interested in having a spring and summer and early fall of intensive education.
Yeah.
So my hope is that we can, that we'll take this conversation and continue to discuss, how we can bring you guys in and create a program.
Absolutely.
For education.
A question, are the workers, the people that actually apply this, required to attend on that first or the sessions, or is it just the principals?
It is just the person who owns the business, but oftentimes what I see is for someone that signs up for the class, they bring several of their people with them.
Yeah, because I just wondered if it was multilingual, because there's a lot of people that I know in the law and business that have a difficult time with English.
It is not multilingual yet. Our hope is that we can get either a translator to stand with me or sit with me while we're doing this and translate, or that we can get the material translated. So at least if someone does not comprehend either this language or the speed with which it's delivered, they will have a resource that they can look back on and say, okay, that's what that person was talking about. We have recently signed on a translation service. So hopefully I will be able to avail myself and my materials to that service and get some of the stuff at least translated so that there can be some communication line there.
Do you educate vendors that sell this material? Like we have certain organizations on the island and around, that market.
I have not seen what I teach or the way I teach it in another language, but that is not to say that it's not. For example, if we were able to translate some of the material, one of the first things would be, I have a sheet on how to calibrate a spreader. And that's not only good for fertilizer, but that's good for pesticides, granular pesticides as well. And it's a simple sheet, so it should not be that difficult to translate. I don't know what the cost to do that would be because I'm new to this ability to be able to translate stuff, but that's something that I figure we can tackle down the line. Now, if you're interested, I can show you the next 2 or 3 slides, which are other basic tenets of fertilizer, knowledge of fertilizer and how you would deal with it. But we can save that too for another time.
I think that we do want to save that just because I think that we want to do much more. And we
Right.
want to, and then,
Okay.
and just educating us is probably insufficient. We probably want to do more in a creative forum,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
So I think that our focus really should be on a forum. Also, we should, we have other guests, so we should, continue onward with our agenda here. But I don't want to cut anything short.
No, no,
If there are
that's-
either comments about sort of beginning, the next steps of structuring more of a program of education on Shelter Island, or if people, but I think that we have, Tamsin, we can all reach out to you and with questions, and
Absolutely.
right?
Email me because I'm very difficult to pin down. I'm slippery as an eel. But if
We're
you
good with,
email me-
we're good with email.
And what's that email address?
I have it, I can,
Okay.
yeah, I can forward everybody that information.
All right.
Thank you very much, Tamsin, for this overview, and I think that we have to get ourselves in gear and really come up with a program and a timeline, and so.
Yeah, educational work is like got to be key to what we're
We'll be
doing
reaching
all
out.
of this spring, so,
Question?
yes.
Donna?
Stella. Stella, you with us?
I am,
There
sorry,
you go.
guys.
No problem.
I was just wondering, Peter, if there's any role that the SIA could play here once the WAC comes up with what a plan of attack would be. But I know, for example, in the Heights, we have an information session every August, and I could see this as potentially being really helpful to our members. So I just throw that out there.
And I think, thank you very much, Stella. I think that not everybody is equally familiar with the Shelter Island Association. And, Shelter Island Association throws itself into various issues and so forth, and you may have heard of it from there. But one of the things that's very fundamental about the Shelter Island Association is that it's an association of associations.
Right.
And so we have access to lots of different community groups. The Fresh Pond Neighbors Association is part of the Shelter Island Association. The Shelter Island Heights Property Owners Corporation is as well. Silver Beach is as well. So,
Manic.
so it's a real Monantic Homeowners Association. So we really do have, it's really smart for us to be thinking about Shelter Island Association in relation to the educational effort.
Well, that's what I was referring to when I call it HOA. It's not really, I guess, technically, but the associations that we have on the island, those are really key points to education. Because, they can disperse information to a larger group of people.
Really great comment, Stella. Thank you. Any other comments? Connections here? Okay, so do we have Alice and Linda with us? Guys there, there's Alice, Linda. You can, if you want to put on your video, or if I don't know if you want to. Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good. So Alice, hi. Hey, both of you. And is David also with us?
I don't see David.
David's not online right now. So these guys were all initiated the Monantic Creek Keepers organization, alarmed at the decline in the ecosystem in Monantic Creek. And we've discussed it before, but since that time, we've had Alice and Linda and I met with Caitlin Cunningham from the USGS. And so we're beginning a process that we want to stay in coordination with the committee on. Do you want to comment at all, Alice?
Well, Caitlin forwarded us a lot of information, and we've been, I think, trying to work our way through some of it, and at the same time look at what she had suggested. We might look at what kind of devices we might use to test for dissolved oxygen, temperature, and conductivity were what she was suggesting. So we've started some of that a little bit, but it's a bit overwhelming. So we're hoping she will guide us further on in that quest.
Yeah, and I assume Caitlin is going to, be with us. I don't think we're going to lose her. And Caitlin did point us to some of the relatively low-cost technology available for citizen science work. In particular, there are the systems called HOBO, HOBO, data loggers that are available for nitrogen. Again, in this particular case, the three variables that we were focusing in on was specific conductivity, dissolved oxygen, and temperature. You guys located, had a couple of places circled on the maps.
Yeah, well, we had sort of thought, well, these, the dock in front of my house, which is kind of at the end of the creek, near where the flow is coming in, that would obviously be an easy place for us to start because we're right there. And then David's dock is down closer to the neck, and it might be good to see what's happening kind of at each end of the creek.
Right.
So initially, those seemed like places we knew we could do something. It's not until we get more people involved in actually using their properties to access something or access by water. So we thought maybe we start small with 2 locations, and that also gives us the opportunity to see like how things are different from one end to the other, and especially if and when the dredging ever happens, how that impacts each of those locations too.
So again, we have a bunch of very big facts. There's a potential, not even potential, we expect that there will be a dredging done at the mouth of Menantic, increasing tidal flushing. We have now traced, famously now, the flow of effluent from all the center systems directly to the head of Menantic Creek. So we have a very interesting spot to be paying attention to. We have a community group that wants to do citizen science on this. We have some leaders for that group. The group is, a number of them showed up at the various meetings that have happened over the last few weeks. And there's a good 27, 37 people out there, in the Menantic community that are kind of paying attention to impacts on them and what they can do. When I looked, after we had our conversation with Caitlin, when I looked, I saw on Amazon and on the HOBO website, units for data logging, reading and data logging those specific variables, ranging from a few $100s to around $1,200 or $1,300. When Caitlin discussed this topic when the USGS scientist was discussing this topic with us, she was pointing out that, you might want 1 or 2 stations, you might want to be moving a device and having a length of space rather than just time in one space readings. And that it was possible to, use some of the devices both in a fixed location or moving them, doing a drag kind of a thing. So Caitlin's with us on this work, but these guys, they're looking at a few $100s to maybe $1,500 or $2,000 for a unit. I'm sure there's plenty of them who could, who would say this is really important and have the money in their pockets, but that's not, I feel like, I felt very lucky as a member of the Fresh Pond Neighbors Association to have the Citizen Statewide Lake Assessment Program kind of creating a structure for us to, and contributing a little bit. So Caitlin emphasized 1, good record keeping. 2, having that record keeping be public and be part of, and we had that at the Fresh Pond Neighbors Association for 5-6 years of citizen science so far, because we just had to we had our forms, we had to fill them out, and we had to submit them to the New York State Federation of Lake Associations and to the New York State DEC. These guys have done, you've started to do some work with the EPA handbook?
Yes, Caitlin forwarded us that, and there's a template. And so we started to work through that, and some of it gets into then what we're testing and what equipment we're using and how we're using it. So that's where we're kind of trying to figure out that next step.
So they're working on data points, a recording, a logging process for data points. They're hoping that, the USGS, us, will receive that information as like an ongoing data collection process, part of our process. And allow them to like, you know, be able to say, yes, we had somebody and it was this date and they signed off and when they did it and here was the measures that they got, and regularly submitting those to us. At the same time, they're also looking for, you know, I don't know, collaboration, participation with us, with the town on, I mean, they can now muster at least a few of their neighbors to do some like regular work like James and I have done and others have done in Fresh Pond. So I know that we had, Lisa, you recently had a small request for budget for the posters.
Yes.
So, and I know we have some budget available. So for one, I'm wondering, you know, if they're coming up with a proposal, we're going to want this device, this device, this device, it's going to cost us, this is 300 and this one's 1,300 and we'll, you know, put them here and there.
I think it might be in proper also request for WQI.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Mhm.
WQI.
So if we could come up with a written something.
They're, you know, if you see what Linda and Alice have been sending in, they're like beginning to create the framework for just that. Here's what our project is for. Here's what we're trying to monitor. Here's what, but we're talking petty cash here.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, just as a point, there was no money in the WAC.
We had,
You had like $96, so Amber sunk money into the budget. So, I mean, I think going forward, that's something that perhaps needs to be looked at, is budgeting for this committee. Because there isn't enough really to do what you want to do.
absolutely.
But now that you're expanding, then our services or
And
whatever.
part of it too is you can punt projects to WQI, because their entire purpose is to deem projects fundable and then provide funding. So, you know, WQI can't come up with their own projects necessarily, but they accept applications. So I would say, like, that's definitely a
Just a
viable
real
stream.
sort of, you know, proper
for some of
thing
these
that they can
projects.
read, discuss, vote on, and kick to town board.
As long as it meets our criteria as far as what we can fund.
Right, which is what I have to look at, 64-E,
Yeah,
so
54?
64.
64 dash, yeah.
Having that,
Sounds like this would meet
I think it
that
would.
criteria.
Yeah, I do. And so actually, do you want to just introduce yourself? We have WQI represented here.
Both myself and Greg Toner are part of the WQI.
go to the podium?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Betty Bishop, by the way, and I'm on the WQI. And we have a certain set of standards that we have to follow as far as what we can fund and what we can't. And it sounds to me that this would fall under that category of what is fundable. But you would have to come up with, you know, a blurb as to what you're doing and what's this for, what you're measuring, and how much you were looking for funding in order to do that. And then I would imagine that we would require some of your data, you know, to support either continuation of the project or to have the project.
Now, Betty, they don't yet have any data,
No, I understand that.
right?
But I'm just saying, as part of this whole procedure, you know, we're just not going to give you money and say, hey, that's it, we're done.
Right.
We would accept that you would have to follow up with your data and,
Right. So we're very much looking for a process here. We have the community, they're ready to go. You know, I'm sure that funding is not going to be the fundamental issue here because we're talking about so small amount of funding. There is a degree to which they are very mindful. They're amateurs. We have a USGS scientist who's able to advise us on what we should measure and how we should measure it. They're eager. They've begun to create forms for themselves for data submission. They're eager to have us receive that so that there's a record that this is actually being done and being done following a protocol. And, and again, Betty, thank you. I mean, it's, helping them out just in terms of that it's a joint process. Yeah.
Peter, how do you figure what the WAC role in this citizen science?
So I'm looking at, so Caitlin, one of the things that's interesting about Caitlin Cunningham is that she has been an important participant in the coastal monitoring program that the South Ferry Hills Monitoring Station is part of. So she's very much attuned to the data we're receiving now at South Ferry Hills. Joe and Pio have done great work in tracing what's going on in terms of waste flows. And we've identified the head of Manatee Creek as a critical spot. Right. At the same time, due to work that Allison and Linda's dad did over the course of 40 years, we're finally getting at least some idea that we're going to have some dredging at the mouth of Manatee Creek, maybe more tidal flushing happening. So, for all those reasons, we do have something that's fitting in between all of the things we're paying attention to already.
Yeah, I was looking.
They're filling in some detail.
From a data, have we had any role in the aspect of data collection or repository or having a place then that we can say, this is where it is and we have a history of
repository. I think we're the repository. Yeah. They're the data collection, because we're going to rely on citizen science like we did at Fresh Pond. But the data should be, it shouldn't just be that they collect some data and they have it in their desk drawer somewhere.
Where do you see that data residing?
For one, I think, so I'm more than willing as, a member of the WAC to receive documents and place them somewhere in our
within our
SharePoint.
Within the SharePoint, basically.
Right. Okay. So then we should have a it should just be a folder in SharePoint, right?
I don't know, that's what I'm referring to, because we have GIS also, which is a repository for information, which is more targeted and could be another layer. But here again, looking at the bigger picture, I'm just saying if this is going to be a role.
Initially, there's raw data. So raw data is a folder in our SharePoint coming from them once they've established
straightforward
a form, right? After that, now you suddenly have data points in between the data that flow from the center down to Manatee Creek and South Ferry Hill Station. Now suddenly you have going up into the creek.
Right, because we're starting to get data, just like the USGS system that we have, we have the data there and we know where it is and so forth.
Yeah, no, I think ultimately it should be modeled into our bigger model of the island.
This thing is perpetual, then the issue has to be data management and everything that goes with that, as you know. Right. Okay.
So you guys, I'm more than, whenever we're ready to set up another meeting with Caitlin, I'm more than ready to join you. But, as you're beginning, you were absolutely on the right path from what I saw, but you left things sketchy because you knew that you didn't know enough yet. Right?
Yes.
But at the same time, I mean, a few questions with Caitlin, you'll say okay, there's a field for how much is the oxygen level, and there's a field for what date and time it is. You already got date and time, but you're missing what are the critical variables you're going to need to note down, and then after that, you've got a form for ongoing submission as a data point.
I have a question for either of you. I know you're saying that you're trying to get homeowners on board to go on their properties, et cetera. Have you approached the boatyard to see what kind of impact that is having on the creek?
Not directly. They were invited to our meeting, but nobody came.
Right, but yes, the boatyard should remain a target for you. Should be looking to develop relationships at the boatyard and.
Because of the activity that's generated there, which is tremendous amount of activity. And we were talking with Tamsin mentioning about boat paint, bottom paint, even though it's been changed. All of that impacts.
Holding tanks.
No, as a community, and you're pumping gas right there.
Yeah.
I'd say. So, and my son pumped gas, and he told me things, and I don't want to say them.
Right.
My other recommendation would be see if you can get maybe one more data point in the creek, preferably at the head of the creek. Like maybe reach out to the Anglins or the Seagulls and see if they'd be willing to let you guys test off their docks, because they're at the head, they're like the deepest point of the creek, and that would be great, because then you'd have the beginning, the middle, and the end, and you'd really be able to see changes.
That's a great point, because when you look at it, you know, it's basically a big teardrop with the pinch point down by the boatyard.
Right.
Boatyard, in fact, looks like there's a portion of it that was built on what was once a sandbar, actually.
Exactly.
Sort of shoveling sand against the tide, so to speak.
Yep.
The benefit of bulkheading.
The issue then, though, real quick, the issue then, though, is each site requires, you know, more work. So it'd be good to get more people on board, but then it's also going to cost more because each site is going to need, what I think is the same piece of equipment so that we.
Right. So,
have it the
yes.
same way. So that's what I'm saying, put that together. I think that if you come once to the WQI with the full ask, I
Yeah,
think better,
Right.
better.
And I think if you can get 3 points, one in the beginning of the creek, one in the middle, and one at the end, then that would cover everything. So I don't think you need more than 3 if you have them located in optimal places.
excellent point.
Yeah, Betty.
What's your plan as far as time of year that you're collecting this data? Is this something you're thinking about collecting all year long, or you just during the spring and the fall, or what, do you have any kind of idea about that?
Are you going to answer, Linda?
Go ahead, Em.
I think we would like to continue all year round.
Yes.
We're there. And, you know, I think it's something that we'd like to get going, I guess, as soon as we can this year so that we have a good a good amount of data before anything happens at the neck of the creek. And we see if that makes any difference. I mean, our long-term goal is to, like, how do we make things better here? Because it's really awful.
Right.
I have a question. On these devices, are they impacted, if they're attached to a dock, do they get impacted from the water freezing? And would you need to put some sort of gurgler next to it to keep the ice free around it?
I think we'd have to research that. We have not had a hard freeze in the creek in a number of years. So it might be something we just have to monitor and keep an eye on.
Pull it as needed.
Yeah, Caitlin was talking to us about the need to just even clean them up.
Yeah, there's a lot of
You know,
maintenance.
you have to pull them up and clean the muck out.
Right.
And so there's some maintenance involved. Yeah, and if you've left them in all winter and you haven't done that, then in the very early spring, it's a very mucky job. But you do have to do that in order to keep the devices actually functioning properly. But they are, as Doug leaned over and whispered to me, these are Bluetooth devices that have real-time monitoring. The logging is happening internally to some extent. So once you've got them in the water, you're going to start getting data. And you just need to know how to Bluetooth off the data and, you know, process it to your standard formats.
Just for a point of information, the next WQI meeting is May 4th. So that would be May 4th, and then the following town board meeting is May 16th. So.
There's your timeline.
There's your timeline.
You know, give you guys that little push we all need to get organized.
Considering, yeah.
Right. So again, you know, all due speed and any point, you know, with Caitlin, and also anybody else who is interested in this project and would want to contact them and get involved. Betty,
I'm interested.
you aren't Betty.
Yeah, I've done this kind of monitoring in the past.
So Betty, Alice, Linda, you need each other's contact information.
Okay.
All right.
Wonderful.
Great. And I'll also stay plugged in. Okay, so more questions about the Monantic project?
That's a great idea.
I think
And then
it's,
just quickly, first, so
yeah.
Linda.
Go ahead.
can you, I don't know if you can hear me, I seem to be
Yeah.
coming in and out. Do you guys hear
You're
me?
good,
okay?
you're good.
Just
You're
quickly,
good.
so you can hear me? Okay. The main thing I'd like you to know too is that, you know, ideally, we really want to start this project Memorial Day weekend, boom. And then hopefully be able to have these pieces in place and invite the group to join us, to be introduced to them, and then that way we maybe will get more volunteers, but, so that's our start date.
Right. I don't think you need a lot of volunteers just yet. You have some
Right.
personnel
There's
already.
financial volunteers too, you know.
Yeah, I know. But again, you're gonna, as you get into your warm season, you're gonna have your whole group there, and yeah, you're gonna need to be talking about, how do we pass the hat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you go to the WQI site, my name is there and my email address is there as well. So
Eddie Bishop.
Get in touch with me. It's under Elizabeth Bishop.
Elizabeth.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you,
you. very much.
guys.
Thank you.
And what they're talking about leads us also into sort of the next things, which is, so the next item, unless anybody had something more, was the Center Residential Nitrogen Testing Data Collection Public Education. It's kind of the stuff that Greg and Ken, you were talking about maybe, a little bit of citizen science of us getting a piece of equipment possibly for nitrogen testing.
And lo and behold,
Okay.
this is the unit that Joe indicated that he had some background with, that it didn't, I guess, high school students, it didn't perhaps do it as precisely as necessary, but by the specifications, it looks like there's reproducibility is good, accuracy, they've got those numbers down. The whole kit and caboodle runs something around 665. And it's a nitrate photometer. There's basically you put an amount of a reagent into a container, you put it into the cuvette and you read it, and it gives you the value for nitrates. There was one other unit that I saw, which you had to really give them your social security number to get a quote, and it was a laboratory unit. This is truly a unit that's for the field, for use in the field. And it just provides nitrates. And I have this information here. I started to put together this.
Right.
I had thought that we had a considerable amount of money for, I thought we had $1,000 for stuff, not in the current budget, I take it.
I don't know. I mean, it's,
That budget category that you're mentioning, I think that was one of our budget categories that Amber shifted from one pocket to
it was the
another pocket.
WAC budget.
It was within the WAC budget, right?
Yeah, we used to
I don't
have,
know if there was a.
Yeah,
We used to have a budget.
I think we have, I think that there is some money that eventually is going to go back to the town because we're not going to spend it and is.
that's usually on a yearly basis.
However, there is a question, but money shouldn't be our main concern here, Andrew?
So is the output of that unit the same metric that's in the MCL for drinking water in terms of micrograms per liter?
It goes a tenth to 30 milligrams per liter, or which is that's to my memory, which is 10 milligrams is the potable standard. So
Nitrates.
yeah, of just nitrates. That's correct.
And nitrates, I'm looking at Joe, nitrates is what? NO3, isn't it? As opposed to nitrates, which is NO2?
So the MCL is on nitrates. The part that's a little confusing is when we look at the wastewater side, we talk about total nitrogen,
Okay.
which is nitrites, nitrates, ammonia,
This is just nitrates.
which is what's only measured for.
And that's for the
The
MCL.
typical 10 MCL that we always talk about is nitrates.
Okay.
This correlates with.
This
So this would not be providing, if somebody has a well that's remarkably close to their septic system and the nitrate ammonia reactions haven't occurred and you get ammonia, you're not going to see it here. Because from what they say, it just provides nitrate.
And what's the accuracy you said? Well, I'm asking if it's at 3, for example, will it show it at 3, or does it just measure down to 10 and that's as precise as you
The nitrate range is 0 to 30 milligrams per liter. The resolution is a tenth of a milligram per liter. The nitrate accuracy is 0.5 milligrams per liter, plus or minus 10% of a reading at 25. So, I mean, if you get a 3, I guess you would be saying that, well, it's between a 3 and a 4, but, it's providing a response of 3.
No, it's
And you're not
precise enough for
approaching
what we
10.
need.
and-
Oh, yeah.
I would certainly, I went back to John Cronin's, this is from 2019, and he had it all breaking down and, from 0 to 2, 2 to 4. So I think you'd be able to plug things in pretty clearly.
So,
Can I ask,
go ahead.
what is the purpose of this? What would we do with it?
That's the right question. That's the right question.
Well, no, a number of things. We could be able to provide homeowners, for example, an evaluation if people wanted to see, but we're going to talk about, I think, the test strips. There's nitrate test strips. Instead of having, that looks like it's in this range on the test strip, you'll be able to say you got a 2.5.
Got it.
So, but I think that one of the things we need to focus on is this is about education more than that we're going to do some sort of comprehensive data collection that's going to change our understanding of the nitrogen picture island-wide. So, for example, if you're going to people with a discussion of, well, in this zone, we're concerned you might not have potable water, you might be thinking about, are you interested in public water? The ability to help a homeowner understand, well, what does the picture really look like to me? Is my water non-potable? So if we're beginning to do studies on the areas we think are most impacted, and we're going to begin to reach out to homeowners and ask them, well, would you pay $2,000 to hook up to a water supply? Would you pay? We're feeling that we should be going armed with, well, if you have a question about your home, well, we have a map. This street looks like this level of data of nitrogen level. But would you like me to test your water just personally, just for you? It's not, right?
Yeah, I think Meg has some very good information to give us.
Meg, I think it's time to talk about what we discussed at the end of the meeting last time regarding testing by
Street?
by us.
Yeah, by us, right.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
So at the end of the last meeting, I know people discussed wanting to either have people bring water to get sampled with just test strips, things like that. And I was discussing it with some members of the group, and also our town attorney walked in, and so I was through French.
Sounds lovely.
But I came up with 2 ideas. So one, for the immediate concept of educating people when you do the street cleanup, like the Lions Club is going to do their cleanup and you want to be able to talk to people, give people information. I was thinking we could do a very simple handout that just says, Shelter Island is known to have a nitrate problem. You can get your water tested for free through Suffolk County Department of Health. Here's their information. Here's how you get the contact. So just to let people know, there is a free option to get your water tested by the Suffolk County Department of Health.
Is it not $100?
I remember it being free.
Did
but
you
I-
say the lawyer said you should not do this?
that we shouldn't test people's water for them? Like.
You could imagine why the lawyer
There's a
might
whole
say.
There's a lot of liability.
Can I just say something?
Yes.
When you do any kind of
You have to
testing,
go to the podium. Oh, sorry.
when you do any kind of testing like that, there's a lot of variables. In other words, is this raw water? Are there filtration systems hooked up, into their faucet? What is the temperature of the water when you're doing it? I mean, there's a lot of things, so
It's a little dirty jar.
yeah, exactly, So I think that's the point
Yeah,
that they're trying to.
that's part of it. And then, so my thought was just to get people to know that there's different ways to get your water tested. It doesn't have to be that expensive. I want to talk to a couple of water testing companies to figure out what's the average rate for having your water tested just for nitrates, nitrites, and ammonia, like a total nitrogen test. And just kind of have some of that information on the handout just to make people more aware. And then my other larger kind of more encompassing concept was to kind of coordinate with a water testing company in the area, reach out, see if anyone would be open to that concept. And then doing a mailer to a very specific area of the island, let's say the whole center we want to target, do a mailer, get people to sign up on a list and get a bulk rate to have this company come and test all their water. That you have a professional entity testing it, and then, even taking that one step further would be to see if it fell under the possibility of WQI funding to cover the cost of those water tests for that specific area of people, to help make it even more desirable for them to test their water and become aware of what they're drinking. So that's kind of a bigger picture, and I have a few different things I need to do on that. I need to talk to some water testing companies. I need to talk to WQI, see if it's even something that falls under their code, see if it would be something that they could do, or see if we could just somehow negotiate a bulk rate for all of these residents who are interested. And then, have them, like if they sign up for it, say, I allow the town to have a copy of my water results for the town's internal, understanding of our water quality issues, not to be made public because people have property rights, but just for internal testing. And then we could even say regionally, like this area has an average of about this much, just so that people are aware, and so that we do have the data available for the studies that we're trying to do and we can also track over time, in 10 years, have we seen improvement? If we get these same group of people to maybe let us do another round of testing.
Which would create baseline data.
Exactly, which we don't have, which is.
We have some, and we're going to get more. So, first question is, are you a member of the WAC officially? No, you're not, but you really are. You got honorary whatever. So you're doing that. You're essentially trying to organize that aspect of it. So we must be doing the outreach to the people in this community about, are you okay with your water? That there's concern, and that we are interested in the two-way discussion about, figuring out what it is and what can be done. So, I appreciate that it may not be the time to buy the nitrate photometer and take it around without Stephen's.
It's just one of those things where you want to have a proper chain of custody. You want to make sure it's done correctly, because let's say for some reason your machine isn't calibrated correctly and you give people bad information. Whether you say, oh, your test results are off the chart, or hey, your water looks good, but it turns out they actually get it tested and it's not so good, or they get it tested and hey, it wasn't as bad as you said. You don't want to create that kind of.
Or the other opposite.
Or,
The town doesn't want the liability. It should be the professional organization.
Simply the issue.
It's stressful. It's stressful for people.
Yeah,
like, you don't want to.
That's right.
You don't want to be giving out bad information accidentally with the best intentions.
The water issue might be other than nitrogen.
That's true.
As well.
And so, if
Chlorides or iron or.
So we'll have to target a little bit and see exactly what information would be the most beneficial to have. Because we have foiled information from the county, but when the county gives us the data, they will not give individual properties. They will give a whole street.
Which is great.
Which 114 spans the whole island. So it's hard to sometimes narrow it down to a specific area when you get, North Ferry Road. It's a lot of road. Midway Road is a lot of road.
This conversation started because we were talking about public water.
That's right.
And identifying the areas where public water would be most necessary. So that's sort of how it all began.
Right, which is why, again, so Andrew?
So we got into this because the anecdotal information was that we were concerned there was a drinking water quality problem in certain neighborhoods in the center. Further, once we did the particulate studies around where the particulates are going in the aquifer, that seemed to reinforce that concern. And we started kind of raising this question because we said, okay, if we're going to spend or apply for grants to reduce the effluent going into the aquifer from the various town buildings in the interests of improving the quality of water in the aquifer, how do we actually accelerate the improvement in people's drinking water?
Right.
Because what was motivating it, at least from my standpoint, was the concern that there's a public health issue going on. Okay. listening to all this, these are all valid concerns. I'm wondering, I'm concerned that all this is really going to slow us down. And I'm wondering if there's a different way to get this to get this aquifer water quality information. So for example, how much does a test well cost?
So,
And could we do 4 or 5 of them?
so Andrew, hold on, let me just hold you up for a second. In 2016, the USGS did the first baseline study, and the first well that they did was smack dab in the center of town, right near the circle somewhere, and it came up with more than 10 milligrams of nitrogen.
That's the basis for the heat map
Yep.
that everyone has seen.
Yeah.
So that's derived from.
We are not trying to prove something. We know it.
You know.
We know it. We are not trying to prove something. So you're wanting to jump ahead to water supply
Yeah,
is well received, but also when you make that jump, what Suffolk County Water Authority seems to tell us is that it will be demand driven. That it's not enough for us to know it. It's that the people who don't have water and who might want to demand water need to know that they need to demand water. And they will, and say, I'm ready to sign up and have a pipe put in
Okay, so-
2,000 feet here, $40,000 here.
so the purpose, okay, this is helpful, for me at least.
Right.
The purpose of the testing exercise, however we do that,
And the nitrogen data collection exercise.
is to create demand,
Correct.
not
To prove the problem.
to prove the problem. Is
Correct.
that?
Correct. As far as I'm concerned, the problem has been proven.
Yeah.
It's education.
But it's educating homeowners.
Okay.
so
It's
they
Bringing the
know.
homeowner into the conversation.
Okay, fine.
I would argue it's not to create demand, rather to allow the consumer to make their own
Intelligent choice.
decision.
Okay, fine.
If they choose to not, they may have this information and choose not to pursue a public water connection, but they then have the information to know what maybe is the best treatment option for them.
Okay, thank you for that.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So again, the piece of number 6, the nitrogen testing data collection / public education, the piece that we really haven't touched upon is that we do have actually a little bit more data, map-oriented data that we could chew over and kind of see how well does that correspond with our understanding of who's impacted and what zones are most.
We have some real
impacted.
numbers, basically. in the
We do
spreadsheet.
have in that spreadsheet some, so I would urge us collectively to be trying to dig into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big honking spreadsheet.
It's a big honking spreadsheet, and then also we have this, now we have we probably want to coordinate that a little bit with what we know about flow patterns of waste from the center. I mean, not that we should assume that we know everything, because we don't, we just know flow patterns from these buildings, but.
And all the other buildings have flow
And
patterns.
everything else has flow pattern, but it's telling us something, so you may, certainly along the line of that watershed, where water seems to be running out into Menantic, those addresses, those streets, to the degree we have data about them, we'd like to see, does it correspond with high nitrogen? Anyway,
Well, for me,
Yeah.
I am a concrete person,
yeah,
so I like to say, what am I going to do?
right.
So I'm going to work with Meg to try to get the language so we can make these handouts to send them, to
Yeah.
give them to people at the island cleanup in a week or 2 weeks, whatever it is. That is what I am going to do
Good.
personally. And you can do all of that data stuff.
All right, and that's long-term.
So we're moving in a direction,
Right.
because we have so much to talk about. So it's really good to get steps going in a specific direction.
I'm totally with you, Lisa, and I'm appreciative. So adding in 7, costing and alternatives for public water hookup. So that's something you and Andrew have been a little bit working on here. We want to figure out a way to present to people, what does it mean to me individually to decide I'm one of that 40% that wants water in my neighborhood?
I think that there's a couple of conversations. One is that the town Is the town going to fund this? Or are homeowners going to fund it through the town? That is still an open question, and that I don't know that the town has really answered, because it's going to make, I think, a difference if the town gets a grant or, funds it, or and how much the homeowners are going to have to pay into it.
I agree with you, Lisa, but I
That's
think that
huge.
you need to make a separation. So the separation that I think that we need to make is you have to assume that in some fashion, the town has, just imagine, achieved funding for that basic pumping station, these buildings to get supplied, a couple of mains, to however they figure out how to work it out. The town has somehow done that. That will cost homeowners in their tax bill, maybe, or maybe it's done through a grant, but the homeowner, that's not the decision the homeowner's gonna have to make when it comes down to, am I one of that 40%? Those will be sunk costs by that time. The town will have done that. What will then remain will be, now there's the possibility to hook up. Am I demanding to hook up? It's going to cost me $2,000 to get my line to the main, and it's going to cost me $30 a month or whatever it is. But whatever it is, I need to know it's that versus drinking non-potable water or IGA.
I came up with it.
Well,
I know.
you've actually just made
I
a
want to
very,
isolate the two parts.
I know, but you have just made a very significant assumption.
Yes,
It is a significant
Which
assumption.
is that we know that the Suffolk County Water Authority, if we work with them, they'll build the well field, they'll build the treatment.
Right,
they'll put
on
in
their
the pumping
dime.
station. Okay? Then there's the lines down North Midway Road and across on Jasper and I think it's Smith.
Thomas.
Thomas. All right? You've made
The assumption that that's not on the homeowner.
that that's not on the homeowner, that that's on the town, because it is that basic core system that's going to serve the town buildings.
I want the homeowner shouldn't think about that at the point that they have a decision. I know it's a tough ask, but 2 million, BJ will tell you, that's only 26 cents per day, less than a cup of coffee per person.
Okay.
Think about a 20-year payout.
Absolutely, but we're throwing out figures here.
Yeah. And this
Well,
is,
we can go
I
from
don't
there.
think we can ignore the political side of this.
No,
I mean, Peter, you're speaking, to the choir here. This town board recognizes the need for water.
Public water for
public
people.
water, Recognizes the need for a public wastewater treatment plant, who may or may not be coming down the pike, associates those two things not with public health, but with some backdoor weird way of getting in 8-story condos.
right,
It's not what it's about.
right.
But this is a fight
That's the fight.
that is out there right now.
Right, and we have to have utter clarity
Right.
in that fight, in that particular discussion. This is not about development.
Trying to get this into the comp plan, that infrastructure should not be used to increase density on Shelter Island. Kind of a pretty bold statement of, we're not interested in downzoning. We are interested in public health.
Yeah.
But there are people with anyway, just.
So it's easy to oppose spending $2 million, but most of the people who are going to oppose spending $2 million have never done municipal finance, and nor have I. So let's just basically say there is going to at some point be a consideration. Is there demand for public water or not? And that depends on people's perception of what that is and what they have, what their alternatives are. So if I know a lot of people, myself included, who are buying 1 or 2 5-gallons at the IGA every month. So I know the cost on the other side.
Yeah, I think also the demand is going to drive the cost. So if you have more people interested in hooking up, that will affect your price point. If you have fewer people who want to hook up, once again, affects your price point. So, if you educate people, you let them know what all their options are, and they realize they have a problem and they do their cost benefit analysis, a lot of them probably realize that this is the better option is for me to hook up. So it's a matter of really working that education and information part of it in order to drive demand.
And clarity.
So
Clarity.
it has to be done clearly and concisely.
I think that, and Andrew can correct me, I think that last meeting, what we came up with was a roundabout figure about $7,000 for each household to connect to an already existing system that Suffolk County has, that the Water Authority has proposed. So that, and.
Is that 7,000, is that 7,000 including
per.
putting in your taxes for the main, or is that excluding?
That's putting your service line into your.
Just your own personal service
Yes.
line?
From the
main.
Yeah. And Suffolk County rates, Fire Island rates of $2 and something cents per cubic inch, however they measure it, and $80 annual surcharge. Which goes to testing and future testing. It's not really a surcharge. They call it something else, but it's an annual $80 fee. So those two costs and the cost of the service line are what homeowners are looking at.
Right.
And we asked for specific.
Yeah, I know.
From Joe Picorni, and he said, it's, there's a lot of variables, so do you want to?
Yeah, Andrew?
So I think, that's right. I think the way to express this best from a homeowner perspective is to make it, now we've assumed that the town is going to pick up the transmission mains.
Right.
All right, and bring the water to the center.
Right.
All right, I think the way to do it from here is to make an assumption that a certain number of customers within what we now think to be the affected zone
Right.
are all going to put their hand up and say they want to be on it.
Okay.
Then there would be an allocation of cost of the distribution mains into those neighborhoods. That would be split among the participating homeowners. And there would, in addition, be the cost of the service line from the main to the house that would be borne by the homeowner.
And unique to the homeowner.
And unique to the homeowner.
Some would be much more than others.
Yes, but we're going to have to just make some assumptions about that. And also that the Suffolk County Water Authority will finance through a surcharge paid by the homeowner for the capital cost associated with all of that. So that entire charge per customer, that capital cost per customer, can get translated into and added on to the monthly bill.
Right, not all at once.
So customers don't have to come up with $7,000.
Right.
They can basically finance that through the water authority. And
Through their water bill, essentially.
Yeah, through their water bill, at the water authority's cost of capital, which is very low.
Okay.
Which is like 3 or 4%.
Right, and in the end, you have to be able to.
What we need to do is we need to kind of draw that map, figure out how many homes are in that map, and kind of work all that out with Joe and come up with an average cost per homeowner. It's going to have assumptions all over it, but it's going to be indicative of what the cost could be to a homeowner. Now, if a homeowner uses a lot more water, they're going to pay more. If they're a long way away from if they're set back from the street, they're going to pay more. And on the other hand, some are going to pay less than the average. But that would be useful, I think, to have a discussion with people when you're offering to test their water. So I think that's.
Well, we don't know if we're going to offer to test their water, but as we're educating them, we're saying.
To have their water tested.
So
I think you have to demonstrate two things, and we've said this, and we'll continue to say it. Right now, there's a lot of people turn on their tap, they don't pay anything for their water except the electricity to run their pump. So we have to demonstrate to them that it's greater than a financial burden, but it's a health concern, because it really and truly is.
It is.
So.
And it's the futures.
Convincing people of that is, I think, primary.
I'm also telling you, there are people in my neighborhoods who are just buying their water. Period.
Yeah.
At the IGA.
At the IGA, I do.
Right.
So how much do people pay out monthly in water? I mean.
I can tell you.
Approximately.
Go ahead.
You're going to pay, I'm paying 60 something per month. for water on Shelter Island.
Well, there's other costs too. You have to take consider for other areas of the island where you have water conditioning devices and the maintenance cost of it. You need neutralizers, you could have iron removal systems, tralala.
Yeah, and if I have a hernia when I'm going to be paying even more per month.
That's right, because you're getting to be a certain age or certain things you cannot do.
We should be able to, once we make the assumption that someone else other than the customer is picking up the transmission
That's a
mains.
big,
Once we make that assumption, I think it's reasonably straightforward.
Right, that's what
To come up with an estimate.
And also, I think that your assumptions about what that circle, what that area that's affected is, you could play with that a little bit. Because
Sure.
I think that high nitrogen triangle penetrates kind of deeply into some areas that we may not be thinking about just yet. And people there are in fact avoiding their tap water.
we have a GIS map, by the way, that does a great job of defining the number of households within that triangle. Thank you, BJ. Okay, and we have that on file.
All right, so that would be a place to start.
Yeah, that's your mailing list.
Okay.
All right.
You should be able to export that to a spreadsheet to print that way.
Okay, so it's 3:30. Doug needs to go. We know that we have to continue our work after meetings and through email.
I have one more ask before we go.
Please.
I did give the dump a poster about the bill disposal. It hasn't gone up yet, and I called. And I think I need corroboration on this. If somebody else could ask, because it's a town thing, it is not a yard sale that we're having. It's not a please, it's an informative official town proclamation. So I'm looking to get a little bit of little clout behind this to get it posted somewhere there.
Why don't you just call Brian Sherman?
I've talked.
I wonder where you would put it.
Well, that's one of the problems. They don't know they don't know where to place it.
I mean,
mean-
the only place you could put it would be probably, it's not cardboard, it's not glass, it's not construction debris, so
You make a sign,
it's wet garbage.
you make a sign and you put it where the wet garbage is.
All right, so, but it would, they'd have to remember for the next time they load up their garbage, that time, nobody's gonna say, come up with a bag of wet garbage and say, oh, look, there's that interesting sign.
Here's my drugs.
It's gonna go into the, it's gone, they're not gonna.
Well, hopefully, though, it's education.
The time or the next time or the next time, yeah.
It is
It's
education.
education, that's what it is. So
It's not.
I don't know, is anybody volunteering to,
Well, I know it should be Jim,
I'm sorry?
not Jim Colligan. So I don't know who should be.
Not Jim Colligan is a good slam, so that's,
I love Jim, and he's great, but
This is on the drugs.
we don't need Shelter Island.
Poster.
Jim Reed.
All right, you want to talk to him?
Sure. See what he says. He'll probably say somebody else in the club, but anyhow.
All I'm trying to do is get it hung up at the recycling center, which is a very logical place to have it. So,
I go there every week. I'm happy to talk to people there. Who are you?
you go to the office and you'd say, I'm
Those
on the
fellows.
WAC and I know that we submitted a sign to be posted.
be Brian.
So,
Or Ken Lewis when he comes in, but that's gonna be later on.
the office, it's,
And you reached out to Brian?
Secretary, did you go in this?
yeah.
All right.
Anyway, I'm just asking for a little bit of.
Yeah. Questions what? Okay. Questions online, yes. Anybody online have
Are we
any
dropping
comments or
old
business?
old business?
Old business and new business are open for discussion until we adjourn, so it's
Anything on the geothermal, is that on the back burner?
on geothermal.
Yes.
Nothing's on the back burner. I thought that we had decided to sort of step back from it on the theory that air-based heat pumps appeared to be the technology of
Right, or
interest.
horizontal, but
Right.
no deep holes,
So
basically.
therefore, it was moot, it was interesting and there was much one could do with it,
I
but
thought there was a plan to do a pilot on the Ramot. Somebody wanted to spend the money to try it.
yeah, I don't think we have somebody ready to go
Okay.
here, so.
I don't think we could act quick enough for him.
Figure out.
Is what, because he was really ready to go with his construction.
Because if we could get one, that would be a great, I mean, a good experiment in costing and.
If they wanted to go through it down as the aquifer, I would say that we wouldn't want to, we don't want that. I mean, at least I know, I may be,
I don't-
There's certainly no clarity that we do want.
yeah, that's,
Right. So, and I think the air-based heat pumps do seem to be the direction that is, that society is taking is going to make it more cost-effective.
there's
Cost and scale.
technology there
Right.
that is making it work better, making them work better.
Economies of scale seem to be kicking in for that one, that
It is, there's
approach.
money available,
Yeah.
money available for both.
Are there other items that we don't want to lose from old or new
Is the
business?
oyster thing also in the back burner now?
Well, the oyster thing is, they got their money, right?
Yeah, the oyster.
The oyster and eelgrass gardening.
That's right. The town.
Yeah, it's happening then.
Good, so we're basically.
Yeah, a lot of things are happening.
Good, clean slate.
A lot of things are happening. yeah.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
Okay, so motion to adjourn? Second. All in favor? All right, we are